Let's dive right in. We're going to gently unpack why you are absolutely not failing at life. Actually, you might just be emotionally overloaded. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're talking directly to those of you who feel like you're running on absolute empty. We're going to explore the really profound concepts behind the zen of emotional resilience. So if you're navigating high anxiety or if the world just feels incredibly loud right now, I want you to take a deep breath. You're in the right place, and we're going to walk through this whole thing together.
We really have to start right here. Because if you're tired of being told to just, be disciplined when simply getting out of bed feels like a monumental victory, well, we need to ask this vital question to validate that deep exhaustion you're feeling. Society loves to label a lack of outward productivity as some sort of character flaw. But what if what you're calling laziness is actually your nervous system waving a massive white flag? What if it's literally just your brain trying to escape a reality that's become overwhelmingly demanding?
There is a massive, massive difference between this myth of laziness and the reality of what your body is actually doing in response to a world that is just way too loud. The myth tells you that you're just being pathetic, right? That you aren't trying hard enough. But the reality, the actual biological and psychological reality, is that you're facing severe emotional exhaustion and deep-seated fear. Your avoidance, it's not a lack of willpower. It's a profound state of overload.
Think about the character Zenitsu from Demon Slayer for a second. Much like Zenitsu, whose feelings of being pathetic actually masked profound fear, we can gently overcome this paralysis by using the make it small method to get unstuck. When your anxiety is screaming that everything is too big, too much, you don't need to conquer the whole mountain. Honestly, you just need to look at the ground right in front of your feet. Just make the next task so impossibly small that your fearful brain doesn't even register it as a threat.
And that brings us to concept number 1, escaping Swan Mode and moving beyond mere survival.
This concept captures the feeling perfectly. You make one tiny mistake, maybe a slightly off text from a friend or a really minor error at work, and internally it feels like a Category 5 hurricane. You're in Swan Mode. You're nodding, you're smiling like a total professional, looking perfectly serene on the surface, but underneath the water, you are paddling with absolutely everything you have just to keep from drowning. It might look like resilience to the outside world, but it's actually a state of high-pressure exhaustion silently pushing you toward a massive burnout.
So we really need to distinguish between true resilience and this exhausting survival tactic. If you grew up as the invisible child, or, if you were the hyper-responsible one in your family, your swan-like calm is a heavy suit of armor forged in childhood. You basically learned that being low maintenance was the only way to stay safe. And this is quite different from a true Zen master's learned resilience. A Zen master has mindful frustration tolerance. They've trained their brain to see problems as puzzles. The swan, on the other hand, is just using forced calm as a desperate defense mechanism. And my friend, I know that suit of armor is getting incredibly heavy for you to wear.
Moving right along to concept number 2, grounding your nervous system. Because the big question is, how do we actually lower those heavy defenses when anxiety spikes?
Well, we use the 5-4-3-2-1 technique. When you feel that urge to overanalyze a conversation until it turns into a literal psychological thriller, you can gently walk through these 5 sensory steps to anchor yourself to the here and now. Just stop what you're doing, look around, and actually name 5 things you can see. Touch 4 things right around you. Listen for 3 distinct sounds. Find 2 things you can smell, and focus on 1 single thing you can taste. I know it sounds almost too simple, but it is a highly effective, gentle intervention for a racing mind.
So why does this actually work? Well, it grounds you by pulling your mind right out of past trauma or future fear, clearly and gently signaling to your vagus nerve that you are safe right now. Engaging your senses essentially hits the brakes on that mental time travel that anxiety completely thrives on. It forces your brain to acknowledge the immediate physical reality, sending a biological message straight down your vagus nerve that, despite whatever the panic is screaming at you, in this exact specific moment, you are okay.
Next up is concept number 3. Building an emotional firewall, because genuine resilience is also about how we interact with the world around us.
Pop psychology right now absolutely loves to tell us that cutting people off is the ultimate form of self-care. But a life with absolutely zero friction actually means zero growth. So instead of building this massive wall that keeps everyone out entirely and just leaves you totally isolated, we need a much gentler, way more sustainable approach. We need to transition from complete isolation to healthy boundaries.
We like to call this the emotional firewall. Look, you don't have to be an unpaid 24/7 therapist for your friends. You do not have to answer every drama-filled text the second it vibrates on your phone. You can love someone from a distance by adjusting this volume dial to protect your own energy. Think of it like acting as the remote control to your own attention. You are 100% allowed to turn the volume down on the chaos around you so that you can actually hear your own heartbeat.
And that brings us to our final and honestly, perhaps most comforting concept. Number 4, the radical good enough.
We live in a culture that is totally suffering from what we can call the upgrading obsession. We often get so obsessed with upgrading our perceived flaws, endlessly chasing the next achievement, the next notification, the next dopamine spike, that we literally treat ourselves like a piece of software constantly needing a new patch. And in doing all that, we completely forget to actually live our lives. Trying to be some flawless, emotionless guru who never gets angry is just a fast track to self-hatred. So here is the absolutely crucial takeaway. Your fundamental worth is completely untied from how productive or optimized you are. Resilience isn't about perfection. It requires the deeply radical act of simply being good enough. It's about accepting exactly where you are right now, without that heavy, crushing burden of needing to fix everything immediately.
When you are emotionally overloaded, your metrics for success just have to change. Some days, the absolute biggest victories are just the basic human acts. Getting out of bed, eating a nourishing meal, and perhaps the hardest one for high achievers with anxiety, resting without punishing yourself for it. True resilience is a direction. It's not a destination. It's simply about being a little bit kinder to yourself today than you were yesterday.
I need you to remember something. You are a human being navigating a world that is way too loud and way too fast. If you're struggling, it's not because you're broken, and it is certainly not because you are too sensitive. You are having a completely normal reaction to a totally overwhelming environment. By practicing these small, daily habits, the Make It Small method, grounding your vagus nerve, adjusting your emotional volume dial, you will slowly and beautifully rewire your nervous system to genuinely believe that safety is possible.
I'm going to leave you with this final thought to answer in the comments below, because sharing your story might be the exact spark that helps someone else feel a little less alone today. What is one small thing you are giving yourself permission to be imperfect at today? Thank you so much for joining me in this explainer. Please be gentle with yourselves, trust that you are doing enough, and until next time, take care.